Hello Internet! My name is Frank Baldwin, aka Sandy Brushtail, and I would like to welcome you to a brand new series on this channel called Furry Fandom Stories, where I take a look back at my own experiences over the fandom and like to comment on some of the more relevant topics floating around the fandom known as furry. And for my very first video, I am going to talk about one of the biggest events in the UK furry fandom calendar, ConFuzzled 2018. Taking place at the Hilton Birmingham Metropole next to the National Exhibition Centre, NEC for short, in Birmingham, UK, ConFuzzled first started off at a YHA youth hostel in Manchester with 136 attendees. Now, ConFuzzled has gotten so big it is now the second largest furry convention in Europe and the second largest outside of North America. This year saw the convention grow to 1,908 attendees from 36 different countries around the world, and 2018 marked the 10th anniversary. Okay, let's get one thing straight. ConFuzzled 2017 was not the 10th anniversary. It was the 10th ConFuzzled. Your wedding day is not the first anniversary of your wedding. Anyway, this year was the 6th ConFuzzled I had attended, and this was my 8th convention, the other two being just for the weekend 2017 and 2018. So, let's dive into ConFuzzled 2018, a salute to gaming. When it came to registering, I left it until after New Year's, which was a bit of a bad move. The Hilton had become fully booked, and the Crowne Plaza, which was the overflow hotel, I had to be put on a waiting list. So I thought to myself, there must be other hotels around. And after doing a bit of research and everything and realising that both my first and second choice hotels were actually fully booked as well, I basically had only one option left. The Ibis by Birmingham International Airport. Compared to the single rooms at the Hilton Metropole, the single rooms at the Ibis were more spacious. However, there was one thing I had noticed. Hang on, where's the... What? Where's the toilet? Oh, okay. As for getting to the Hilton from the Ibis, there was a monorail line from the airport itself to the NEC, and it was easy finding my way from there. At conventions, first days, I tend to do these things in ascending order. Register, get a drink, hang out, attend opening ceremony. And this year, the opening ceremony did not disappoint.
Rolling the countdown, we're going to start from 10, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
The confetti got everywhere. It took the hotel cleaning staff 20 minutes to clean up the main stage. But it didn't end there. It got tracked through the hotel bar, the guest lounge, it ended up on the top floor of the Hilton, in the light fittings above the main stage. It even got tracked into the overflow hotel. And apparently the Crowne Plaza, they were not happy about that. Also, I've heard. As for the rest of the night, I did poke my head into the dances, but I didn't shake my tail or anything, and I just spent the rest of the evening hanging out with friends. But it wasn't until I got back to the Ibis when I realised, wow, I miss karaoke. No biggie. There are 2 karaoke nights. I missed one. I'll just catch the other one. Diving into day 2, and I had to go to Dealer's Den to pick up my com badge I had commissioned by Lapras of Paw Printing Studios, and here it is. I also managed to pick up a ledger from her stall as well, and I also picked up the infamous V-Art Wolf cap. I saw a lot of attendees wearing these caps, and V-Art was selling 2 designs. one with the woof motif and another with meow. As you can see, I've got the woof cap as my Furry belongs to the canine family. After picking up my badge, I went to Motorfurs, and Motorfurs is an event for furries who also happen to be petrol heads, or gearheads if you're American. And the selection of cars on display is always varied. They're sports cars, saloon cars, tuners, hatchbacks, estates, SUVs. They even have a section for old Volvo estate wagons. The cars that really stood out this year, of course, was the Mustang, obviously belonging to Corey Coyote at Dead Dog Games. And there was also an Aston Martin convertible. I'm still unsure of what actual model it was, but seriously, an Aston Martin at a Motorfurs event, that is rare. That is very rare. If you're a furry that's also into cars and you're at a convention that's throwing a Motorfurs meet, go have a look. Go have a look. It's the only place really where you can be both a furry and a car person. Now we move on to one of ConFuzzled's most popular events for attendees, Fursuit Fiasco. I love Fursuit Fiasco. Just watching dozens of fursuiters frolicking about in a series of contests is somehow the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. Also, I know several of the furries participating too. The games were also quite varied as well. Starting off with a round of Brock Says. Hey, as long as we're not kicking off with a round of musical chairs or musical statues, that's fine by me. And then came a game I like to call Play Your Cards Right. Large playing cards were distributed to the audience members in the front row, and when a particular card was called out, the suitors had to find and match the card. This is another thing about Fursuit Fiasco I like. They try to get the audience involved too. Makes it feel more inclusive. I even got asked to pick a card. Next game was a modified version of Red Rover, but instead of calling someone over to the other side of the room, two suitors stood holding paws in the middle and had to catch other suitors as they ran past. Anyone caught had to join the chain. Next up was the inflatable egg and spoon race, and finally the hula hoop relay. Determining the winners of Fursuit Fiasco this year was done through a scramble. The MC had several pieces of paper with pictures on them, and they all had different captions like first place, second place, you did not win, and so on. It finished when the suitors grabbed first, second and third places. Fursuit Fiasco is always a showcase of just how fun and goofy the fandom can be, and this year I'm going to give it 5 stars out of 5. There were callbacks from games like previous ConFuzzled, but you know, the games they did have are quite inventive. Their wipeouts are plenty, getting the audience involved, and hey, no musical chairs and musical statues. After Fursuit Fiasco, I was hanging out with some other furries, and I was mainly just taking photos of suitors. I missed the Fursuit dance competition, but I did know one of the guys participating, and during his routine he gave himself a mild concussion, and I guess that's one of the drawbacks of participating in a dance competition in fursuit. You sort of like don't really know your own limitations. But I saw him at the fur meets after ConFuzzled and he's fine. Also that evening I decided to get into makeup and check out the photo shoot, but when my turn was coming up I wasn't satisfied with how my scheme was looking. I didn't have a proper mirror to work with, and it was so warm in the hotel toilets that I was sweating the moment I stepped in the door. So I did it outside looking at my reflection in a window, and as you can tell from the selfie I took, it looked so patchy. I tried to fix it up by smudging and rubbing it in tried to cover up all the patches of bare skin, but the colours on the bridge of my nose had started to separate. So my T-zone was turning a lovely shade of red, and the yellow had actually mixed in with my sweat and started to dribble down my jowls. So, no photo shoot for me. And also Saturday nights at ConFuzzled is Rock Night by Alec DeLupe, and for the second year in a row, ConFuzzled, well done. Rock Night was spot on. Playing a great selection of tracks from artists like System of a Down, Korn, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, and finishing it off with God Gave Rock and Roll by Kiss. However, there was little or no grunge rock, no Pearl Jam, no Nirvana, no Silverchair. Nevertheless, a great set of tunes to mosh to, and I'm going to give Rock Night 4 stars out of 5, and that's mainly because of the lack of 90s Seattle sound. I did stick around for some of Strider's set, but I wanted to have an early night because Sunday was the Fursuit Parade. It was also the first night I ever tried Uber, and you know what? I'm going to recommend them. Day 3, of course, is Sunday, the day of the big Fursuit Parade. And my first ever Fursuit Parade was back in 2013, where I was in my Redwall cosplay. I didn't actually participate in a parade as my persona until 2015, and I got to admit I was a little bit nervous about going into a Fursuit Parade as my persona because I was afraid, well, not afraid, but I was kind of conscious about sort of like the reactions of other attendees. Predominantly, you're ruining the magic! It's not a real fursuit! And so on. But yeah, even to this day, I still get odd looks from attendees that are like, not real fursuit, not real fursuit. But fuck it. The Fursuit Parade is an opportunity for furries to shine and show off their personas. This year I wanted to do something a little different. Anybody who's attended ConFuzzled in the past few years will note the air conditioning of the Hilton Metropole is, to put it mildly, inadequate. And this is one of the major drawbacks of doing face painting instead of having a fursuit head. Sweat. By the end of the parade, I would look like a melted ice lolly. So this year I bought myself an orange do-rag and wrapped that around my forehead. Obviously it's not a matching shade of orange, but any other I could find were either too small or had embossed patterns on them. I was still sweating a bit, but I wasn't melting, and I saw some of the pictures taken by other attendees, and I think it works in a way. I dared not paint my head markings on it because of all the sweat it would have soaked up. It wasn't until at the end of the Fursuit Parade that I realised one of my paw pads had come off. I asked at ConOps, nobody had turned it in, so I went around dealers then, asking for fursuit parts suppliers to see if they had anything suitable, but nobody sold anything like it. At the time of speaking, I'm looking around Etsy.com, and I think I might have found something suitable. I'll let you guys know. One event I really wanted to go to was Nightmare Live. And if you don't know, Nightmare was a children's survival horror game show with a Dungeons and Dragons theme. And it is one of the big nostalgia hits for anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s in the UK. I was so hyped for this when it got announced. But then...
we have a good mixed age group here. When I grew up, there was a TV show called Nightmare on television.
Yes! Yes!
Nightmare was an immersive virtual reality experience for the contestants where they usually died horribly.
Yeah!
But it was great to watch. So we have Nightmare Live as a sponsor-exclusive event. So check the contract, check the schedule for the time. But if you're a sponsor, you can come along and be involved with a live rendition of Nightmare. Does that sound cool? Now, it is a sponsored event, so badges will be checked on the door.
Sponsors only. So yeah, I was disappointed I couldn't go see Nightmare Live. And I did manage to speak to some of the lucky bastards who actually did. and they said it was phenomenal. I gotta fork out for an orange lanyard more often. Moving on, that afternoon I was just wandering around the hotel and taking pictures of suitors, and after having some dinner, I reapplied my makeup to try the photo shoot again. This time I used a proper mirror and everything looked in place. The diorama for the photo shoot this year was based on the video game Portal, a sheet of plywood with an oval shape cut out, and on one side of the hole were orange lights, and on the other were blue. And one camera was set up looking at the orange side, and another set up looking at the blue side. And 2 pictures were taken. These 2 pictures were then superimposed side by side to create the illusion of me going through the portal. Moving on to the nightlife, and I missed one karaoke night. I wasn't going to miss another. I love karaoke. It's one of the few events where attendees can show off some musical talent, and I've been to karaoke nights down regular bars and pubs, and I do like to get up and have a bit of a sing-song. Also, some of the other furries sing the odd gem. The wait wasn't that long, no technical problems to speak of, and furries were singing the odd song that was right up my alley. I even got complimented on my singing. I don't see why. Continuing on the nightlife with the dances, including a set by Mr. Corey Coyote and a good friend of mine, Harry Curley. Now, I got to admit, I only listen to an odd bit of electronica, but I'm not as much as I am into it, say, rock or metal. The dance floor was packed for Corey's set. Now, I don't mean to say that the other DJs didn't bring in the ravers, far from it, but it was the fullest dance floor I've ever seen after attending, at that point, 7 conventions. Moving on to the last day, Monday. Now when it comes to last days, I tend to have a look at a schedule and see what I feel like. And the first thing that caught my eye was a mini photo shoot for amateur photographers. Suitors were organised into groups according to species, who was cosplaying, if a specific studio tailored their suits, and so on. It was the first time I really tinkered about with my camera, adjusting aperture, experimenting with shutter speeds, and testing out the panoramic setting. I took over 80 pictures, and that's not including the test shots. If you would like to see the photos I took during the amateur shoot, I'll leave a description to my Flickr album in the doobly-doo. Before I went to the amateur photography meet, I took another quick dive into Dealer's Den before they closed, and I managed to pick up a paw print pendant necklace from Olive Tree Artistries. And I also picked up some pin badges as well. After the amateur photography meet, I went to Jim's Saturday night travesty on a Monday afternoon. And by the end of his show, I was wondering, why didn't I go see this sooner? Our host Jim pitted 2 teams against each other in a varied contest, including games like Catchphrase, Snout Down, Family Fur Tunes, and of course, Wheel of Foxtune! And the teams were presented with points and prizes, but they went head to head for the grand prize of a
Nando's gift card!
Just like in Fursuit Fiasco, Jim tried to get the audience involved as well. He handed out these little peaches with numbers written on them. And whenever he called out a number at random, that audience member would get a prize. And this would range from an old chipped grommet mug to Wales. Yeah, Wales the country. I'm going to rate Jim's Saturday night travesty on a Monday afternoon a solid 5 stars out of 5. Why didn't I go to see this sooner? I had heard good things about Jim's shows, but I never went along to see it for myself. A first-class performance all round. Really enjoyed it. Now we move on to a regular event in the ConFuzzled schedule, which is the Paw Pet Show. Paw Pets is an adult puppet show which sees the cast get into hilarious shenanigans. Think of it as Avenue Q, but with a furry twist and a lot less singing. The Paw Pet Show's plot is connected to the theme of the convention. This year saw the recurring characters Dr. Stein, his brother Brian, best friend Quentin, and the return of Floofy. The gang tried to stop NPC Villager A from wreaking havoc upon the real world after he became self-aware and escaped from their new VR gaming system. Some of the video game references were quite predictable. Super Mario, Final Fantasy, Zelda, Street Fighter and so on. But they also had references from Dark Souls, the Worms franchise and Plants vs Zombies. A lot of people have commented on how the quality of writing of the Paw Pet Show has kind of declined over the past couple of years. But nevertheless, a fantastic outing for the Paw Pets UK company. I was howling with laughter through both acts, and I'm going to give Paw Pets 10 Press X to Not Die 4 stars out of 5. Not their best show, but I have seen worse. Just needed more Dark Souls references. Last night at the convention is when Sandy comes out to party. Flashing wristbands? Check. Flashing collar? Check. Raiding the cocktail lounge and getting nicely drunk before hitting the dance floor? Check. Now, I may be into my acoustic music than I am electronica, but Graffin and BBF were keeping the tunes banging, and I was raving until the wee hours of the morning. Before leaving ConFuzzled for another year, nearly everybody went to the closing ceremony. This year, ConFuzzled UK honoured Yippee Coyote, where ConFuzzled 2018 was his 100th convention and his first ever visit to the UK. The representatives of the Vale Wildlife Hospital also gave a little speech and revealed that the preliminary total of funds they had raised at the convention was over £20,000. We also got a nice little surprise where one of the reps from the Vale Wildlife Hospital, he reached under the back of his shirt and pulled out a foxtail. Oh, the entire main stage started chanting, "One of us! One of us!" Afterwards, the guests of honours, Natasha and Ryan Campbell, also gave some kind words as well. And then the theme for next year was revealed. The theme for ConFuzzled 2019 will be the Brock from Badger. Basically spies, secret agents, stuff like that. Wrapping up this video, I'm going to grade ConFuzzled 2018. And usually when it comes to ConFuzzled, they end up in the A category. And this year is no exception. This year, ConFuzzled 2018 has earned a solid A grade. A lot of people are saying that this is the best ConFuzzled they have ever been to. I disagree. It was definitely one of their better years, and it was a theme everybody can get behind. Highlights included confetti shower during the opening ceremony, rock night, my makeup not melting during the fursuit parade, Paw Pet Show, and Jim's Saturday night travesty on a Monday afternoon. Negatives I have. 1. Nightmare Live was sponsors only. Shame on you, ConFuzzled. Shame on you. My other complaint is this. If the Hilton is ever fully booked again, I am not staying at the Ibis. No coffee or tea in the rooms. Breakfast was not included. You had to use your key card to use the sodding elevator, and also the key cards after a certain amount of time would not work. So you had to keep refreshing them. And while I'm on the subject, some of the members of staff, cheeky sons of bitches. Before signing off, I want to give out a couple of shout-outs. First of all, I want to mention Shadow Raccoon and thank him for including me in his live streaming on day one. Tark Hyena for sharing his special reserves with me. A big thank you to Lapras for doing my com badge and for the lovely compliments she gave me about my face painting. Shout out to Orion, Tenacious Fox, and Axis for the wonderful rounds of What Bar we played when fursuiters would walk past. Oh, and Axis, if you are watching this, keep an eye on that concussion, mate. Also, a quick shout out to El Presidente and the entire staff of the Hilton Birmingham Metropole for hosting our menagerie, and also a big thank you to the convention crew, the convention directors, and the security staff, and also many of you awesome furry fuzzbutts. There are too many of you to mention. This one's for you. Cheers.
Come on now, don't let the night be over. Come on now, don't let the night be over. Come on now, don't let the night be over. Oh, come on now, don't let the night be over. After we leave, I hope that I'll see you next year. Oh, after we leave, I hope that I'll see you next year. Yeah, yeah. After we leave, I hope that I'll see you next year.
Treasure these days, for they will never come round again. And that wraps up my first ever episode of Furry Fandom Stories. If you have liked this show, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. If you have a topic that you want me to discuss on the show, you can find me on Twitter at SandyBFox. Use the hashtag Furry Fandom Stories. And also, if you've got any critiques about this video, something I could do better next time, please leave them in the comments section below. I'm Frank Baldwin, aka Sandy Brushtail, and I'll see you again for another Furry Fandom story. What? Have I got something on my face?